Hi friends, today I thought we would kick off a new series where I put on makeup and talk about my lifting program, why I choose the exercises that I do, technique, and hopefully this will lead to other conversations about debunking myths and all that, because I have a hard time recording myself at the gym because not that I feel self-conscious, but I don't want to feel like I'm in anyone's way or I'm recording anyone. I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. And I know eventually I might have to do that anyway. I could probably get away with that at the lifting gym I train at when I'm babysitting Maddie, because there's not as many people at the climbing gym like there is at my gym here. So I could probably get away with recording myself and speaking about the exercises while I train. But I think this is a fun format. We could try it out. You could let me know down below. And while I take you through my programming, we're gonna slap on some makeup. I am barefaced, as you see, to get the hairs, my little twisties, out the way. Let me just clip these up. And quick hair update, someone had asked me about it during or in the comments under my February faves video. I would like to do a hair update in May, as that will be 6 months from my last cut. In short, my hair has done drastically better. Even in this short period of time, I can notice the length in terms of it growing steadily. It's more conditioned, it's softer because I'm not combing through it every day. I'm letting it rest in the twist in this protective style, and the twists are looking good. I've managed to land on a partitioning system that works well for how I like my twist to be styled, and of course I'll go more into that when I film my update. But let's start with some skincare, and we'll also begin with what I'm doing right now. I used to do a full body. I used to do full body 3 times a week. Recently I switched back to a lower upper, also known as upper lower. I just like to start my week with legs, and because of that, why don't I run you through what a lower body day looks for me. And while we do that, I will apply my essence, which is nearly done, as well as my Peach and Lily Matcha Pudding Antioxidant Cream. I like to open up my lower body days with a squat exercise, and here I have my front squats. I think this is 135, and yes, I'm doing pin squats, meaning I come to a dead stop at the bottom, which makes it immensely tough to get back up because I basically eliminate any momentum that occurs when you're going down. Now granted, I don't usually dive bomb down. I try to practice as much control as I can to come back up, but the stretch reflex does help in getting up, and trying to lift 135 from a dead stop is quite challenging. And you see here I have my weightlifting shoes on because having that heel lift does encourage forward knee travel, which is crucial for quad development and also knee strength. Now the rep range I'm working with is a 6 to 10. It's rather low, as I like to open with more strength bias, a strength bias rep range and weight, and then later on in the session I'll move up to a 8 to 12, 8 to 15, because I don't particularly want huge legs. I know I don't want huge legs. I want legs that look strong, but I also want them to be strong, and working in a lower rep range like 6 to 10 promotes that strength. It also promotes muscle building 100%. When you get into more of the higher rep range, 8 to 15 rep ranges, then it starts to become more muscle building promoting, but you're still building strength regardless, especially, and this is why I spoke about in my why you're not seeing gains at the gym video. That's why it's important to keep track of your weight, your reps, and your sets, because now the next time I do my front squats, let's see here, I think I did 5. I have to look back at the video, but whatever I did here, I at least want to try and get that same number next time or 1 rep higher. That is the goal. And be clear, progress is not linear. I might stay at 5-6 reps for a few weeks, and that's okay. I might not be able to put on another rep or put on more weight, but you're still getting stronger, and other markers of increasing strength is getting up faster, not feeling as gassed right after a set. Those are all proxies for improvement. It's not just the reps and the weight. And again, that's why it's important to keep track of what you did last time so you can see you're at least maintaining. I like front squats because I do have the wrist flexibility as well as the upper back mobility to keep the bar up this high. I think it's a great challenge, and because of the position of the bar, it forces you to stay upright, because with the back squat, especially since this is on your back, you could lean forward and the back will still stay even if it's high bar. Low bar squat, people tend to favor if their leverages favor a more forward leaning squat, because if they have longer femurs and a shorter torso, it's tough for them to stay upright, and that's why they hold the bar lower so they could go more into this forward fold that will enable them to go lower. I like a higher bar position on my back because I do like to practice staying as upright as I can. What am I doing? I'm putting on concealer first. It's fine. I had to bring you in a little closer. I have a pretty even torso to thigh leg ratio, which is why I feel high bar squats are fine for me to practice. But back to why I pick front squats is because, again, if you lean forward, you lose the bar. That's it. It makes it so that you have to stay more upright, and because of that, naturally your knees will have to travel more forward, which will then lead to more of a quad stimulus, because the more forward your knee, the more stretch is imposed on the quadriceps. Also, that enables you to go low without butt winking at the bottom. And if you're able to maintain that pelvic position with the knees going forward, that also imposes a deeper stretch in the glutes, because if your pelvis is like this and it's all the way down, that's a crazy stretch on the glute, versus if it starts to round under, then you lose that stretch and you just get that into your lower back, which is what people tend to do since they're not used to going more forward with their knees, because that was a prevailing narrative in the fitness space, where no matter what fitness space you visited, keep your knee over your toe line. Your knees can go beyond your toe line. People get hurt because they don't introduce load incrementally, carefully into these larger ranges of motion. And also, if you only train at 90 degrees, you only get strong in 90 degrees. And how do injuries happen? When you introduce a range of motion to your body that is not used to in an uncontrolled situation, right? It's shocking to it. But if you introduce, range of motion with weight, you're getting closer to better bulletproofing your joints. And that's why I hold back on adding weight quickly over the course of several weeks. I don't mind staying on 135. If it's going to get my knees strong, my tendons and ligaments strong, not just the muscles, in order to safeguard my joints against injury in the future, then I'll stay at that weight until I have completely mastered that range of motion using 135. Now, if I'm not pin squatting, I can front squat, I think it's 140, 145. Okay, 145 for 6 reps. That is my highest right now. That's without the dead stop, which is why I could push the weight a little more and get higher reps on that. I'm staying at 145 until I could get 10 good reps. And I don't mind. It might take me a few months. That's fine. People like to see weight on the bar because that is a sign that you are getting stronger, 100%. For me, I rather again, allow my body the time to truly master the weight and the range of motion I wish it to excel in, which is, in this case, as you see, sneaks to cheeks. So that's how I like to open my first lower body day, with some sort of squat pattern. And if you're asking yourself, well, where would you program back squats? Because I started with a 6 to 10 rep range for my front squats, I can then do one back off set with back pause squats. And basically, you go down slow and you pause at the bottom. You say a prayer, you come right back up. And that is more in a 8 to 15 rep range. And I like to do the back squats in a higher rep range because that is great for conditioning. It challenges your work capacity because when you're around rep 7, 8, you're halfway there, you question whether you're going to make it, but you take that extra pause at the top like I am here because there is another rep in you, right? And that gets built over time. It's scary because, and just have the safeties up or have a spotter, because you're like, whoa, it's getting heavier and heavier as we get closer to the end of this rep range. Are we gonna make it? I don't know, but you can only know if you try. And does it feel good to finish that set? But that's how I program my back squats. I do sometimes cycle in a heavier set of back squats where I would apply the 6 to 10 rep range. But front squats, there's just something about front squats that make me feel strong, that make me feel like I'm using my legs exclusively, as opposed to back squat. Like everyone, despite your leverages, you end up using back and hip, because when it gets heavy, some people hip drive up before they even start coming up from the knees. And again, front squat, you could get away with like a little bit, but not as much as you can with the back squat. So that's why I prioritize the front squat for my program, right? Front squats are not for everyone, again, because I have flexible wrists from handstanding. My upper back is pretty flexible, my middle back pretty flexible, where it's able to stay pretty upright at a low depth, where I'm pretty much booty to grass and the bar doesn't fall forward. Sometimes it does. I mean, there have been the final reps that look close, but the bar has not fallen off yet, and I keep my shoulders pretty high. It's tough, but it's worth it. So up next, I would then choose, and hopefully this will help you program as well, if it's overwhelming for you to choose exercises and you don't know how to. I like to program from a movement pattern perspective. And because I started with a knee flexion exercise, which could be any type of squat or split squat, in this case, it was the front squat with one back squat set, I would then go in with a hinge, right? And let me mention this also from the late and great John Meadows, rest in peace. He was an American bodybuilder, and I still watch a lot of his videos. And something that he suggested, and I think it's a fantastic idea, is to do your hamstring isolations before your squat exercise. And that's what I do here with the seated leg curl. Holy F. Because I'm leaning forward, a predisposed stretch on the hamstrings already, because I'm leaning forward, therefore my pelvis is flexed. And now I gotta contract them suckers, but when I eccentrically lengthen them, when my knee extends forward, ooh, it is wicked, and they are tough but great to do before your squats because it warms up the knees. Yes, it's good to do your hamstring isolations because there is a hamstring group that does not cross the hip. It only crosses the knee, which means it is not targeted in hinge exercises like deadlifts, RDLs, and single leg RDLs, hypers. You target them by doing the hamstring isolation exercises, whether it's a seated ham curl, lying ham curl. Here I'm doing a glute ham raise because the climbing gym doesn't have a Lying leg curl machine, although they have like a hybrid bench mechanism where you could put plates on the sleeve and curl that way, but I much rather do the glute ham raise. I think it is a superior exercise to that setup. But if you have the lying leg curl machine, get on that thing. 10 to 20. Yes, a higher rep range I like, and go as close to failure as you can. You know, you're just sitting down and they will get you sore, especially if you're leaning forward like me. These get you hella sore. They murder my hamstrings, man. I don't push it as much. I try to do 3 sets, again, in that 15 to 20 rep range, and I gave myself a rather wide rep range so I have room to improve. Where every week I do my ham curls, I could add a rep or 2 every time and not have to up the weight and still progress. That is key, and why it's important to choose a rep range that allows you to do that. And after you've completed your sets, it's like you're ready to go for your squat. And this is something I learned from RP, Renaissance Periodization, specifically from Jared Feather, who is an IFBB pro. It helps that systematic arousal to start with an exercise that's not as intense as squats. Because yeah, sometimes when you're coming from home or work or whatever situation, to get you revved up for that intensity, because it is intense. If you're not afraid of the weight on the bar, and this is something I also learned from Soviak, which I think his real name is Axel. He's a French bodybuilder, and he was showing us one of his lower body days where he was also doing front squats. He had on text on the video, if the weight doesn't scare you, you're not working hard enough. That's not to say to work with the weight that's going to injure you. Obviously, he's telling you that yes, you train within your capacity, but you have to push it. And yeah, there are some days where I am nervous. I have butterflies in my stomach, like, okay, because I know the feelings and the sensations are just going to start surging. But when you start with the leg curls, you're like, okay. And I do my deep squat kind of prep and stuff between my leg curl sets, maybe do some calf raises, right? So there's an opportunity there between your leg curl sets that you can do some low squat mobility work that will just help the momentum in your session that day. That yes, you're resting between sets, but you're also just getting moving and grooving. So when you actually get to your top sets for squats, you're like in the zone. We hit hamstrings from a knee flexion perspective. We hit our knee flexion exercise with front squats. Now, just so you know, if this was a full body day, I would then go to an upper body exercise, whether it be a push exercise or a pull exercise. But since this is lower body and doesn't mean have to be completely so, what I like to do is sneak in some delt exercises, some shoulder raises where there's rear delts or lateral delt exercises, and abdominal exercises on my lower body days. You could slap those onto anything because they're not so systematically fatiguing that they're going to take away from your other exercise. Now, I recently did this. After my knee flexion exercise, I will go into a hinge exercise, and recently I experimented with the Smith machine single leg RDLs. Mama, these are tough because the Smith machine is fixed. It allows for better stability, because if you had dumbbells, I would hold on to a back of a bench. I wouldn't do these freestanding, or I would do them with a landmine, which is more stable than just holding dumbbells and floating your leg back. I'm also on a riser because I want to go as low as I can, getting a good stretch on those hamstrings and glutes. Notice that my knee stays in this fixed position. I help my clients a lot with this. What usually happens is that if people have tight hamstrings, the lower they go, they've met their limit in hip flexion and they start to bend in order to go lower. You have to stop where your hamstrings stop, because you want your hamstrings to be the limiting factor in this exercise. You don't want it to be anything else. You don't want to invite other muscle groups to help with coming back up to stand. And that's why I'm adamant about keeping the knee in the fixed position and why you only go as low as you can. We're going into the hyper natural face palette. It's essential that you do that because I think that's what's made a huge difference in my hamstring development, is making the hamstrings work. Also, when you look at the entire week, I like to do a bilateral exercise, that's being on 2 legs at once, with a unilateral exercise. Later in the week, where I open my second lower body day with a hinge exercise with my RDLs or my good mornings, I will do a unilateral knee flexion exercise where I would do deficit reverse lunges on the Smith machine, or what I did last Wednesday, the Bulgarian split squats. Oh my God. And that's why I chose a unilateral hinge exercise here. But man, if you haven't tried the Smith machine with the single leg RDLs, you got to do it. It's not that it's best, because there's no best exercise, right? It depends on the individual. It depends on the gym, right? It depends on any anatomical limitations that you might have, injury history. It comes down to experimentation. That doesn't mean you switch the exercises every week. You kind of have to spend time on an exercise, even if it doesn't feel great at first, because that's life. When you start something new, you need your body to acclimate to it, right? This happened to acclimate quickly, all right? As soon as I hopped on this thing and tried the single leg RDLs, we were on the money. I felt the hammies and the glutes screaming. So this is why this particular exercise I will keep now on my first lower body day. This is going to be a part of the program. Now, in terms of rep ranges, I have here, I think 70, because the Smith machine bar is 20, and I have 2 quarters on. I'm in an 8 to 12 rep range, a little higher than my front squat rep range. I want to hit a little higher because it's not as intense as the front squats, but it's still intense. Okay? Like, I see Jesus when I do these. And I use straps as well, because although it's just the Smith machine, blush time, I don't want my grip to be the limiting factor in this exercise. I want it to be my hams and my glutes. So you're probably asking, okay, you opened with hamstrings, great. Did knee flexion exercise that targets adductors, that's your inner thighs? Yes. Squats and lunges hit the inner thighs, especially if you go as deep as you can. We got the quads, the glutes, and the inner thighs from the squat sets. We got the hams and glutes now again from the single leg RDL sets. This is where I would do, some people would go on the leg press or do like another squat type of exercise. You could, but I'm a believer of working as hard as you absolutely can in the sets that you already have that day. If you feel like you have to do more after, let's say, like 3 exercises already, because granted, we already did 1 isolation and 2 compounds. So I would say 1 isolation left is enough. If you feel you have to do more than that, you have to work harder in the sets you already did. You have to push harder in your hamstring curls. You got to push harder in your squats. You got to push harder in your single leg RDLs. When it comes to building muscle and strength, simplicity. If you don't have to do 1,000 exercises a day and kill yourself. And yes, I did say work as hard as you can in those sets, but making yourself stay in the gym 2 hours plus with reps and sets on end doesn't make any sense. So maybe streamline your programming a little bit and truly focus on getting the best quality work out of those exercises from the beginning of your session. Let me go back to what I did on Sunday. Lying leg curl, front squat. Oh, I did lying leg curl on Sunday because I do not like the seated curl machine that Equinox has. It's a hoist one. Oh, it's the worst. Front squat. Oh, okay. In between my front squat sets, remember how I mentioned that it's easy to tack on lateral types of exercise, lateral shoulder types of exercises and abs. I did my Lateral Raises in between my squat sets. So my shoulders are not really working like that during my squat sets. That's why I thought it would be a great opportunity to get some shoulders in. So I was going Lateral Raises, 15 pounds, 16 reps each. That is more like a 10 to 20 rep range. Went to the single leg Smith RDL. Okay, decline ab. When it comes to the abdominals, here's the thing. People conflate ab exercises and core exercises. They are two different approaches. They're two different focuses, right? Because here on this decline weighted ab machine, or bench, I should say, in this exercise, I want to target my rectus abdominis, the six-pack muscle. I'm not looking to strengthen my core. I did that already in my front squat in keeping my torso erect against the weight of 145 pounds, okay? That was my core work, and there's other core work you can do with the farmer walks or unilateral farmer walk, where you hold like a dumbbell or a kettlebell on one side and you keep your spine from rotating or laterally flexing, right? And there's also this is the exercise where you're near the cable machine, the Pavlov press, is that what it's called? You try to keep your torso from rotating as you push the weight forward. Those are core exercises. Planks, right, where you're fighting against gravity in not allowing your spine to extend against the weight of it. But the rectus abdominis, your six-pack muscle, is like any other muscle. If you want it to grow and get stronger, you also have to apply the concept of progressive overload like any other muscle group. Okay, especially for women, because depending on your body type, where you hold the most fat, I hold my most fat around my hips and my legs, which is why I could get away with a double-digit body fat percentage and you could still see my abs. That's just because of how my fat is distributed. Whereas on someone else's frame, if they mainly hold fat around their midsection, they might have more shredded legs than me, because that's not where they hold most of their fat, but they will have to be at a lower body fat percentage to see their abs more. But that's the thing, you don't have to be at devastatingly low body fat percentages to see your abs, even if you hold most of your fat around your midsection, because if you're able to grow your abs where they're more pronounced underneath that layer of fat, you could probably still see them even if you're still double digit. That is a normal body fat percentage to be in for women, and some women maybe not. It really all depends. It's not a one size fits all. I'm saying if you're into abs, okay, if you want to see them, but you don't want to starve yourself, please don't. Eat the food, work your abs. And the way the abs grow the most, if you place them at a disadvantageous position. So I have the dumbbell behind my head, which means that's where the heaviest point is, right? Because my abs are here and the weight's all over here. It's going to work mighty hard to get back up. I'm on a decline, so that places even a deeper stretch on my abdomen, and the role of your rectus abdominis is to flex your spine, which is why you gotta go all the way down, fam. I see people stay at the top. Even if it burns, that doesn't mean your abs are gonna grow from that. You're just building up metabolites in the muscle tissue, and it's hard to continue because it's just uncomfortable. It's not because you're causing the most amount of muscle tension your abs can take and adapt from, grow from, get stronger from. In order to produce that adaptation, you gotta give them some to fight against. And if you're fighting against gravity when you're trying to roll down as most controlled fashion as you can, and you're completely flat and you gotta curl up with your abs are gonna grow. Let me go with every day. I remember specifically where I was taking a ton of Equinox classes. I would take cycling, kickboxing, Pilates, yoga. I mean, mama's doing something different every day, all right? Like the name of this eyeshadow. And I was thin. I looked like I went to the gym, right? That it was a part of my life. Never did I see any ab development. Okay, and these classes had the crunches, they had the sit up, they had the planks, the core exercises. I just wasn't working my abs the way that they needed to be worked for them to be seen like they are seen now. And I'm at a double-digit body fat percentage. And granted, yes, I haven't taken my body fat percentage since like 2 years ago. I know for sure I'm like double digits still, and that's where I want to be, but I could still see my abdominals. I could still see them, and this is the first time in years, okay? I'm eating more than I was those years ago taking all those classes. I'm doing my ab exercises that make the abs work, and they're challenging to the abs, in addition to hanging leg raises, because now, especially if you do them against the barbell like I am here, you could get that nice arch at the, like that swan arch, and the abs gotta work hard to get that pelvis up again. If it's tough to hang on to the bar, I know I'm able to do pull-ups, so my grip tolerance is pretty good. Get those elbow hang things that hang off the bar and do your knees up, or the Roman chair, right? Do the knees up and extend all the way down. All the way down, come up. Don't swing the legs or just focus on getting the knees up and going from like this half chair position to the knees to the rib cage. No. Extend the legs all the way down. Okay. Now, after the abdominals, I like to go into another isolation exercise, and this is where, you know, if you want the big booty, you want to juice your booty or what have you, you could do the seated abduction machine. You could do single leg abduction exercises. I'll put up a few clips here just so you can see a few examples. You know, pick one that feels good and that you could load, obviously. I don't particularly, well, let me just say this. I haven't been very good about consistent abduction work, I gotta say, because by the time I'm done, I'm pretty tired. And also, this was on a Sunday where I teach afterwards, and I have a time limit, which means even if I wanted to do them and I run out of time, I gotta get ready to teach class. On another day where I had time, I would hop on the abduction machine, even if it's just 2 sets. 2 to 3 is good. Some people will, you know, push for. I think 3 is a sweet spot, and that could be definitely a 15 to 20 rep range. Same thing with the single leg exercises for abduction. You could also do inner thigh work, seated adduction, or Copenhagen's. Again, much like what I had discussed about the abdominals, lifting your leg or squeezing the Pilates circle, it's just not hard enough. You're not going through a full range of motion for your inner thighs. My top leg is placed on the Smith bar. You could lower it. You could start at a weight bench height, and the stretch that is imposed on the inner thighs when I lower my second leg is tremendous. That is going to get your inner thighs strong. Especially, it will support your lunges and your squats, make them feel nice and juicy at the bottom. And I will also apply a 15-20 rep range with the Copenhagen's, that's what those are called, or with the adduction machine. Make sure with the adduction machine that the first rep you do, you assist yourself, because the inner thigh tendons are delicate, and that first rep could feel a little, especially if you're moving up in weight. Fine to assist yourself on that first rep, slowly open, and then you will begin the set from there. I would apply the same 15 to 20 rep range to that exercise. Let's go in with statement. At the end of your compounds, some people would actually do them before. If they feel they need to warm up the inner thighs before they get into their knee flexion exercise, that's okay to do. I'm not an advocate of the bands and the crab walks, simply because, okay, if you need them to feel the burn and warm up, that's fine. The best type of warm up is doing the exercise that you are preparing to do. If you're warming up for squats, that's why you could do body weight squats for 10 reps, and then you just do reps with the bar, and then you do 50% of your top set weight. And as you get closer to that weight, you could do like 5 or 3, and you're warmed up. There's no reason to spend 20 minutes on band things. It just doesn't make any sense. You're not activating your glutes in a way that's going to make them grow more. No, the glutes grow when they are in that loaded stretch position and they have to produce force to get back up. And yes, hip thrusts are great. I think they shine even more if you could get in a deep stretch at the bottom, right? And make your glutes have to push that weight from a disadvantageous depth. You could also do single leg hip thrusts as your isolation. Is a compound movement, but considered to be an isolation exercise for the glutes after you've done your 2 compound leg movements and maybe 1 isolation exercise. If you want to bias your program or bias glutes more, you could finish everything off with single leg. And I would prop my heel on a step so that the back is on the bench, foot is on a riser, and you get even lower. And if you add a dumbbell to that, okay, it gets crazy. Let's put soft on the inner part of the eye. That's pretty. It's rosy, but it goes with everything. And that's my lower body day. It's not complicated, and this is what I have been doing for the last 2 years. These are the exercises that I've been doing. And sure, I might have switched days or switched the variation, but all I've been doing have been squats, lunges, hinges, and my isolations over and over and over again. I try to stick with the program at least for 6 months. Yes, 6 months. Yes, if you want to change things up every 6 to 8 weeks, you can. For me, I like to work on the same thing because I feel these movements, especially the squat, quite technical. The more often you practice it, the more proficient you are, and you could spend more energy on the effort versus you learning the technique and truly pushing the intensity. That's why it is vitally important to stick to a program for a significant amount of time. And it's not about changing it up all the time. That's just a distraction. Your muscles don't grow faster if you shock them. That's not a thing. Your muscles grow from the adaptation you impose upon them. They grow when something is hard, where they are struggling to push or pull some type of weight. That's a signal, oh, you got to get stronger. It's not, oh, something new. That's more from novelty, right? When people, as an example, a power lifter who hasn't stretched a day in his life takes Pilates. It might be the hardest thing he has done or she has done because they don't do that. They don't do that on the regular. That's why it's hard. But that hard isn't what grows muscle. That's what people think, that because something is hard, that's going to make them stronger or make them toned. That type of hard is more neurological, is mental also, because you're not coordinated. It's something new. You're a little embarrassed about it. You're like, oh, what's going on? It's just very stimulative at that time. You're in this new environment, your body trying to figure out. That's what makes it difficult. But the type of difficult is working 60 to 70% of your 1 rep max. Pushing and pulling heavy weight in an appropriate range that challenges your muscles and challenges also your tendons and your ligaments to move in tandem with your muscles, so you have the infrastructure to push and pull this heavy weight. That's what makes the change. The whole thing about the shock principle, there is impact, right? If you do something new, if you haven't ran for a while, if you haven't done something for a while, novelty naturally will make you sore. Same thing with lifting. If you haven't lifted a day in your life and you do 10 bodyweight squats, and you're like, what happened to me the next day? You could barely walk. You're wincing every time you go to the bathroom. It's because your body has to adapt, and it will. But after a certain time, when the body weight squats are feeling light, when they're easy to do, that's where you got to add the weight. But that's what helps grow the muscle and gets it stronger. You're still doing a squat. The movement, the exercise hasn't changed at all. You're just adding load to the exercise, so your muscles have something else to adapt to because now they're ready to take on more. Therefore, that is my typical 1 day of a lower body day. I think I spent 6 months on a full body routine. I have to go back and double check, but now entering the spring summer season, I think it's fine to go back to upper lower. I could say it's a 4 if I wanted to. It's a 4-day full body routine because I'm throwing in other exercises from different body parts on those days. I just think it makes it time efficient, especially, I didn't do calves that day because the Smith machine was preoccupied when I wanted to do my calf raises on the Smith machine, preferably on the riser, so I get that stretch at the bottom. I would have ended my session with calves, but I could have just put calves on my next upper body day. And even though it's an upper body day, calves are part of the legs. It doesn't really matter. I learned this from Bold Omni-Man, Paris Butler. He's a coach here also and gracious enough to share his Berserk method. If you are an ME fan, you will love Bold Omni-Man. He shares his Berserk method online for free and shares his program templates for free. Something that I also learned from him is the floater exercises, your abs, your shoulders, and your delts. You could tack those on to any bigger body exercise because as long as it doesn't interfere with your intensity that you're trying to achieve during your top sets, you could just put them in there. And that makes it time efficient. And also, not that it shortens your session, it just helps you get more in the same amount of time. And also helps to improve your work capacity because it keeps you on the clock. It keeps you on your toes where after each set, you're not just kind of roaming around scrolling on your phone until you're rested. No, you could do some abs or whatever between your squats or your overhead press. And that has helped me increase my work capacity and just get more done in the same amount of time. This session, I think in total probably took me an hour and a half. From warm up to end or around there, maybe an hour and 40 minutes. And that's why I like the upper lower because when I do full body, I'm pushing 2 hours. Not that it's a bad thing. I could do 2 hours. It's just that I got other things to do, like YouTube. So I try to manage my time better in splitting my upper body and lower body, and I found that the hour and a half time frame is a little more conducive to what I need to accomplish for the remainder of the day. I am lucky enough to train in the late morning. Late morning is my ideal time to train. I do wake up early, but I use my earlier time for editing and any computer work that I rather just do in the morning. I have lifted in the morning. It's not ideal, but it doesn't matter because there are some weeks where that was the only time to do it. And if that's the only time to do it, so be it. As long as I'm kind of maintaining where I was last time, it might not be the same performance as I would have during my late morning sessions, but it's all good because I'm there and I'm just staying consistent. That's what's going to happen. Consistency, as Jim Quick recently posted on his Instagram, looks like this, right? It's not the glasses all looking the same and having the same amount of water. They all have different amounts of water. And that's what it looks like sometimes. And I think that's what deters people because they want it or they think it has to look like this. But some days are just not going to be baller. They're not going to be banging sessions, and it's okay. But again, another reason why it's important to keep track of your progress because 6 a.m, you feel weak. You feel weak, and the weight that felt pretty good on a day you worked out during your ideal time is going to feel hella heavy during the earlier time. And why it's important to have those numbers, because if you just go by feel, then you might not push yourself where you need to be in order to stay in that weight range and rep range. So obviously on the next episode, I'll speak about my upper body day, which I'm happy to do. That's actually what I did today, but I wanted to cover lower body first because that seems to be a popular topic, especially for women, we tend to bias lower body more than upper body because we are stronger in the lower body, but that doesn't mean that we can get strong up here. And I'll go more into that when speaking about my upper body day. But before we conclude this video, I am figuring out what can I put on these lips. I like these eyes. I really like them. Let's apply this lip liner. This is, I think, Cleo. Definitely going in with the moisture glaze. I want to, yes, 01, the cinnamon beige shade. And that is the final look. Hopefully this video helped in answering any lifting questions that you might have. I will continue this series. It is fun to do, especially when I cover different days on my training program, the next one being an upper day, and we'll follow with a second lower body day to see what I've been up to. And it involves Bulgarian split squats. I'll see you down in those comments, fam. And until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, lift and blend video, or window shopping video. Take care, and I will see you again soon.